Good morning. Thank you for all being here on November 12th, 2024 for the Public and Protective Services Committee meeting. On this committee is, Councillor Blackmore, Councillor Berg, and Mayor Clayton, and myself, Wendy Bosch, as chair. First, we'll start off with the land acknowledgement. The city respectfully acknowledges the Beaver, Cree, Dene, and Métis people, the original caretakers of these lands and surrounding areas. We are grateful to live, learn, work, and play on Treaty 8 territory within Turtle Island and acknowledge these lands have been home to the diverse and sovereign First Nations and Inuit nations since time immemorial. And with that, we will
make the motion for you.
Thank you. We'll go into the adoption of the agenda.
I'd move that we adopt the agenda as amended to include 4.2 Nitehawk under delegations.
That motion is in order, and we will call the question. Okay. Now, our first delegation is Helping Hands, so we'll give them a minute to get up to the front table. You'll have 5 minutes to speak, and then we will, hopefully ask a ton of questions in and around that. Thank you. Dallas and Brittany. You ready? Okay, welcome.
Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Oh, do I have to get closer? How's that? Is that better? Oh boy. Better? Okay. Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'm here to discuss the essential role of a dedicated backbone organization, Helping Hands, which is a division of Northreach, in leading a strategic, focused approach to address food insecurity in our community. Food insecurity affects nearly 19% of residents in Grande Prairie, extending beyond low-income families to impact middle-income households as well. While emergency support provides immediate relief, it doesn't address the underlying causes like financial instability and access to essential services. Currently, local food serving organizations work tirelessly to provide support, but many operate in silos or with limited resources. Without a central, dedicated organization, we lack the structure to coordinate efforts, drive innovative solutions, and optimize resources in a way that can make a lasting impact. A backbone organization like Helping Hands shifts this work from a side-of-the-desk approach to a focused, full-time commitment. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about building a sustainable, collaborative system that truly meets community needs. So I'm going to go over the role and the impact of Helping Hands as the backbone organization. As the backbone organization, Helping Hands will play a central role in unifying food security efforts across the community. This role involves 6 key functions. Number 1, guiding a clear vision and strategy. Helping Hands will create a unified food security strategy that all organizations can align with, establishing shared goals and coordinating efforts. Coordinating aligned activities. By bringing together various organizations and service providers, Helping Hands can ensure that food distribution, community engagement, and support services work in harmony to reduce the duplication of services and fill some gaps. Driving innovation. We're excited to explore new models like the choice model used in Medicine Hat's Root Cellar Food and Wellness Hub, which empowers residents to select the food they need while offering programs like cooking and financial literacy classes to reduce dependency on emergency food services. Establishing shared measurements. Helping Hands will collect and analyze data to track the impact of food security initiatives, making it easier to measure success, adapt strategies, and report progress to stakeholders. Mobilizing resources and partnerships. With a dedicated focus, Helping Hands can more effectively secure funding, build partnerships, and maximize resources to expand the reach and impact of food programs. Advancing policies that support long-term solutions. By advocating for policy changes, Helping Hands will address systemic issues that contribute to food insecurity, helping us build a more resilient community. The expected outcomes. This focused approach will transform how our community addresses food insecurity. Instead of reactive measures, we have a proactive, sustainable system that not only meets immediate food needs, but also empowers residents towards greater self-sufficiency. Helping Hands will bridge the gaps between organizations, encourage collaboration, and foster an environment where innovative solutions can thrive, ultimately reducing the need for emergency food support. With this coordinated approach, we're not just feeding people, we're working to address the root causes of insecurity of food within our community and create long-term change for a healthier, more resilient community. In closing, we ask for council support to provide $160,000 in seed funding. With this investment, Helping Hands can focus solely on building a robust, community-centered food security network that transforms lives and brings sustainable solutions to Grande Prairie. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dallas. Brittany, did you have anything to add?
No, thank you.
It's here for the questions. Thank you. Is there any questions? Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. Dallas, you mentioned innovative solutions several times while you were speaking. Can you give me an idea of where you think your direction there is going, what kind of solutions you're looking at?
Yes, certainly. We've already kind of started some of the innovation within Grande Prairie. The big goal would be a store model where folks can go in and pick their own food out that works for their family to provide dignity and for them to have the choice as far as limited diet or allergies or those kinds of things.
Thank you.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. Thanks for being here today, ladies. I'm curious, you mentioned a store model. Tell me how the collaboration with the Salvation Army and their extended plans look when you coordinate all these organizations that are doing great work in our community. I can see the backbone coordinator, but tell me the thought around the store model.
So the idea would be that it would be a collective table that would come together to plan that store model, and it would be a centralized program, meaning that hopefully all organizations that are supporting food instability in some way are at the table, and that it becomes a centralized store model.
Sorry if I could have a follow-up. But to Councillor Blackmore's question, are you visualizing a physical store?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
And have you had conversations with other organizations? I'm just not sure if there's a need for a physical store, knowing some of the other extended plans that are in the works in the community.
Okay, that's fair. So over the next year, the person that we can hopefully hire will do a business plan and be collaborating with everybody to see if there is an actual need.
Okay, so would it be, sorry, can I, thanks. Would it be fair to say that this could be a phased-in approach, that you wouldn't need both bodies right away?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it would.
So then this financial
process.
ask could be broken into phases?
Yeah, it's the financial ask is for 2 positions
Right.
to work on this.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. Just kind of curious. I see a lot of people in our area back there. Who here is supporting this crew? Just kind of curious. Okay, thank you. My question has kind of been touched on a few times, but it's around infrastructure. Just kind of curious. At this point, before you've hired the 2 people to do the business plan, you've obviously had some preliminary thoughts. Is the idea that you set up your own facility, or is it partnering with somebody that already has a facility?
It would be a collective of all the food insecurity serving agencies within Grande Prairie. It wouldn't be our own project.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Blackmore.
We keep going back to the storefront, but I know there's many organizations in town who are collecting food and disseminating food. I'm thinking of some of them are actually, they deliver food to their clients, such as the Veterans Food Bank. How does that work with a storefront? Is there still going to be the option of some people who are infirm or shut in to have food delivered to them rather than having to, like, are we going to be like a Safeway online store?
So we also deliver food to those that need it, and that would not, there's no goal to eliminate the need to deliver food.
Okay. So you'd be checking in on what their food preferences are so they don't end up with 5 cans of water chestnuts or something.
Yeah, we do that already. So we are serving over 2 days families within the community.
Okay, thank
They
you.
pick their food.
I have one question before I get into the other questions. In your report here, it says that the logistics worker will manage the food bank operations, including handling, donations, inventory, transportation, safety, compliance, and efficient distribution. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Salvation Army does this for themselves as our food bank. So is the Salvation Army head office okay with somebody coming in and managing their food bank through their model?
Oh, so the plan would not be to be a takeover on any food bank.
Okay, but manages food bank operations. What does that mean then?
Oh, sorry. So that the centralized program.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. I think there's lots of great ideas here and opportunity. I would be fairly confident to say that council's first conversation on this was really to find efficiencies and coordination of services so that everybody wasn't asking from the same group of donors, everybody wasn't asking for the same types of things. Finding the efficiencies and the coordination of service would be an incredible outcome. And so bringing everybody to the table is the first step and figuring out who's doing what, and so there's no duplications, etc. How long do you see for a plan? And something that Councillor Blackmore asked in regards to the Veterans Food Bank triggered me in the sense that there may be a time that everybody's not doing food delivery. There may be a time that everybody's not collecting and storing of food. In a perfect world, maybe it's a Salvation Army who is the home of the food, and a Helping Hands is coordinating all the different clients' needs through the different organizations. And so how long do you see you being able to unfold a plan? Because I don't think anybody on this table anyways wants to consider funding something that is a duplication of existing programming.
Yeah, exactly. So the goal would be within a year to be able to have a business plan, a strat plan, and the collective together.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there any other questions? I just have one more question for you, Dallas. In your talking about this store model, space and location. To my understanding, there isn't space or location or space in any of the organizations that we have now that has the ability to do something like this. Is this part of your plan within the next year, or do you have any ideas of where something like this would go?
So that would be a long-term plan that would take several years to get under us. It would take this year, I believe, to get everybody at the table, the business plan, the strat plan, and all that together to move forward.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. So just looking at these two positions, they seem to me that they would be, I guess, active workers, and we're still in the planning stage. At this point, does your organization have the resources to plan this and advance it a little further so that we can, I guess, define more clearly what, again, these roles might be eventually?
So we don't have the financial means to do a business plan or strat plan at this point without some help.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. If you have no other questions, I'm ready for business.
You're Councillor Thiessen? Did you want to step in? I'm okay.
Thank you very much, Chair Boss. I don't sit on this committee. Just a question. I'm hearing all the stuff, and I heard some things in the back before I stepped in. When we're talking about food security and food storage, what is Helping Hands' capability to store the food? Now, I heard some of the storage. I might have missed something, so this could be a redundant question. But how would you go about storing the food, or would you need to get a warehouse or something?
Yeah, that would be, if we're going to get to the point where it's centralized food distribution, that is a future long-term goal. And no, we do not right now at this time have the space to store large amounts of food. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just allow Councillor Bressie to pop in. This is an important subject, so.
Great, thank you. I just want to chime in because we got the delegation here, so I don't know if I'll have an opportunity to ask questions directly when it comes to all of council. excuse me, a concern I've got is if we're gonna have a coordinated effort, there isn't a central funding source. There's no way to kind of force a coordinated effort like there is with other programs. So I'm curious, what kind of conversations have you had with all the other food servicing organizations in town? And can you just help me have confidence that they're on board with Helping Hands taking on this role, and this is a collective? We're actually going to see that kind of consent for everybody to opt in. Can you just give me a bit of confidence in that, maybe?
Sure. I can't remember the exact date, but there was a meeting a while back with the stakeholders that were able to come, and collectively around the table, everybody was able to provide a way that they could contribute to this project.
Right.
Okay.
Could I?
Yeah. Follow up.
And I know that the city's been asking for a backbone organization, but have you been hearing from other food serving organizations saying, hey, please coordinate us, please do this for us?
Yes, so at that same meeting, consensus was made that there needed to be some sort of centralized collective approach to this.
Okay.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. I would move that this item be forwarded to budget deliberations for consideration.
Thank you. That motion is in order, and we'll call the question.
Yeah, I know. Delegations.
It's as soon as this week, so lucky you. Thank you for coming, and we'll move forward with this motion. Is there any conversation to this motion? No? We'll call the question. And that carries. Next, we go to 4.2. Now, normally our delegations put in a request, and that is a few days, a week before Tuesday, usually, prior to the Tuesday. Our delegation did not do that this time from Nitehawk, but as chair, I will accept them coming in this morning to speak to committee. So, Jonathan Clarkson. Morning, Jonathan. Can you introduce yourself and your...
You bet. Thank you, Councillor Bosch. And my apologies for the last minute request for this delegation. And I know you guys are going into budget deliberations on Wednesday, so I know that this is timely for us, and I think for the region as well. So Jonathan Clarkson, General Manager from Nitehawk, and we also operate the Bear Paw Par 3 Golf Course and RV Park on behalf of the City of Grande Prairie. This is now our 7th year, going into our 8th season next year. So, and then joining me today is our Board President, Aaron Lazaruk. So I appreciate him being here as well. So
welcome.
So the information that was just circulated there, I put together a quick one-page summary, essentially, of our revenues and that. And the reason I'm here, we're here today, is essentially we've received information that the driving range at Bear Paw will be decommissioned due to some engineering studies that have went into the poles and that with regards to safety as well as, I guess, long-term life of the poles. And we'd like to be part of the conversation. I know this is very odd from a normal third party operating a city facility, isn't usually brought into those conversations. But being our experience in dealing with sponsorships and engaging community in the past, I think that we can certainly add some value in this facility. This past year alone, we've seen over 11,000 visits to the facility. That's not including the RV park. And with that, about 6,500 of those were to the driving range. At this point, there's no real way with our POS software to really track how many people are coming for the driving range and then staying to use the golf course, or vice versa, coming for the golf course and then staying to use the driving range. But I know that they are related, and I know that it will have a greater impact on the facility as a whole. By losing that aspect of it. So that's why we're here today, is essentially, again, just to be brought into the conversation. The ask too that we would like to have as well is that council involve us in the conversation, and also keep the facility, if possible, keep the facility open for another season so that we can help be part of the solution going forward. For the facility itself, we've seen many users, as I mentioned, but also school group children coming through with the Celtic program. We've had almost, 1,700 visits from the Celtic Academy program, and that's just for golf. That's not including disc golf, which we now offer at Bear Paw, as well as biking is our home base for our programs with the Celtics as well. So there's a lot of exposure to that facility in the community just from that program alone. We also work with the Grande Prairie Golf and Country Club as well, bringing over their summer camp participants to the facility, and those kids are using the range, they're using the course, and again, it's an opportunity for kids. I know for myself, that's where my dad took me to learn how to golf back in the day when I was 12 years old. So that facility certainly, from what we see in terms of our usership, plays a big part in terms of an accessible facility for the community. So I really would like council to consider or reconsider, and administration to reconsider the possibility of looking at other options to keeping that facility or that part of the facility open. So also, just in terms of what we've invested into the facility, just on the driving range side, since opening, and most recently here, the top 2 items on that list, the range golf carts as well as the 3-gang ball picker, we're just in the last 3 years. We've invested about $36,000 into operating that part of the facility. And then annually, we see about $5,200 put into increasing our inventory of range balls and things like that. So we're certainly invested from that perspective. And again, it's 33% of our overall golf course revenue. But for me, it's a bigger piece is what part it plays for the community, and especially in terms of aligning with council strategic priorities. Quality of life this certainly adds to it. Again, like I said, when I see the usership of that facility, this is adding to the community. It's not taking away. So I'd hate to see this lost, especially as the city is investing into South Bear Creek and expanding facilities down there. So I think that's, Aaron, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, that's one thing that Nitehawk prides ourselves on. We're always the entryway to all different sports, right? Like with snowboarding, skiing, mountain biking, and golf as well. Like it's intimidating to go right out to the mountains or right out to the fancy golf course, but this is kind of the entryway. Somebody can get their feet wet, try it out with low investment, and find the sport they love.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jonathan and Aaron, for that. I understand the urgency of attending this committee meeting now, since budget deliberations are this week. So we will have some questions from our committee, and first was Councillor Blackmore.
My question is actually for administration, and the question is, I don't know who is here that could answer it, but what is the risk of delaying refurbishing or taking down the driving range by 12 months?
Is our CEO going to answer that?
Sure, I'll start with that, and Chief Glavin may add. If you recall, we had this discussion of deliberations 1 year ago this week during budget last year, and at the time, we did identify the risk and the need to invest some money in the driving range. This was the year that we extended operations through a daily inspection program, so we have already extended it 1 year. Could we consider some options where we would have to replace portions? There are options if council were to consider looking at some funding options to extend the life, but it would have an expenditure. There's no scenario right now where I would be comfortable to say we should just extend it as is. We would have to put an investment. Could that investment be spread over a number of years? That is a discussion we could have. The costs would still be the same or likely higher under that scenario, but there are other options between full replacement and zero. But all options would require investment from the city.
And just a follow-up question, our current plan is to simply remove it. Is that correct?
At the last budget deliberations, we brought forward the option to replace, and that wasn't supported by council at the time, and we agreed we would keep it open for the year to explore other options. In budget deliberations this week, we have identified costs for dismantling, as there was no funding for repair, and so pending that discussion, we would dismantle. This isn't urgent. This isn't going to be dismantled this week. If there was some time for us to look at that over the winter, but there would be a requirement for us to invest something for it to be open next year.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mayor Clayton.
Question for the delegation. In your note here, you mentioned talking about being a partner. How do you see that unfold, and what are the opportunities in your vision?
Mr. Clarkson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Clayton. In terms of that partnership, again, engaging with community and looking to those corporate donors and sponsors. Like I said, the number of people coming through that facility in a year and the number of people, I think that it's important to. I think if the question was put out to the community, I think that there could be some engagement done there to really bring some corporate dollars. We've talked about other corporate sponsors that we work with at the Hill on a regular basis, that we have relationships that maybe the city doesn't have currently, that we could engage as well. The other thing that we have mentioned as well, City Manager Burke brought up, was spreading it out over a longer period of time. I mean, again, I know that we do pay a net proceed to the city, albeit $8,000 to $9,000 annually, and those monies are supposed to be getting reinvested back into the facility. And I realize that the quote that was received, that would take a long time to cover those funds. But again, I think that there's maybe some grant opportunities too that we could access that the city couldn't, those types of things. So again, this is preliminary at this point. In my mind, we haven't had a lot of time to put, as we're preparing for winter season, to put into how we can help. But I know that we've done this with other projects that we've worked on, so I think that this would be no different.
Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. Just a few questions, but I'll start out with one for CAO Burke. Off the top of my head, the cost to replace the driving range was in the ballpark of $1 million or just north of that. Is that correct?
Chief? Or not Chief? Manager.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. The number we used with the quote we had for budget deliberations last year was $800,000. That was for the complete replacement. We'd have to get back to you if there was some other options for the critical ones, and Chief Glavin might know the number that were critical in the next few years. It wasn't all of them, but I don't know if we have costing, but we would have the number of poles that were in critical condition.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. A question for Chief Glavin. In this proposed rehabilitation of the driving range, obviously there's poles to replace, netting, etc. I don't know if there's any additional dirt work that's required to be done. But knowing that it's a city facility and we have an operator, how do you foresee a potential partnership? What if an organization came to you with gift in kind for the infrastructure, the dirt work, whatever is required? How could that unfold, and is that possible?
Chief Glavin.
Yes, that's something we could definitely consider. It's something we've worked through with our procurement department, that we have the ability to work with a vendor who is willing to provide those services on that basis. Ultimately, would just need to be follow an engineering plan for whatever the proper design is for the driving range.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. So questions, I guess, for the delegation now. You'd mentioned it's 33% of your revenue towards Bear Paw. In the big picture, what percentage of revenue is this for you?
For Nitehawk, overall revenue this past year gross revenue for Bear Paw was about just shy of $250,000. Again, the bigger piece for us with Bear Paw is, and the reason why it was of interest to us when we took it on, one being it falls within our wheelhouse of outdoor recreation, but two, it allows us to employ staff year round. Again, I haven't put the thought into how many staff will this then affect, that so will not be on the payroll because, we don't need maintenance there all day running a ball picker and things like that. I mean, this is a first time, a job that's for a lot of first timers. We employ a lot of teenagers in that throughout the summer. It's not a huge thing, but it's again, a big part for us is keeping staff year round. That's the bigger part for us. And like I mentioned earlier, the impact on the community and that we have, that's what the nonprofit organization piece is not something that we're all in it for the money. It's about the bigger piece, and why we're there is to make an impact on the community and to really provide opportunities for recreation. So
yeah. So as I process this, it's a little bit of a tennis match in my mind. On the one hand, I appreciate everything that you guys do.
Yeah.
On the other, if we were to replace it, there would be a period of time where it would be closed, regardless, over the summer. One of the things that I also believe is that if we were to decommission it, the city would put something else in its place. And just to be frank, I think there's 3 private driving ranges within the city, so it's not as though we're going without that. But we would plan on redeveloping that in some way, shape, or capacity. As we're having this conversation, perhaps we have a lens of something else you could manage that would be new and beneficial to the city that may be able to generate even more revenue than what you're earning off of that.
Where some of the conversation that we've had is, obviously adding more RV sites. I mean, that is something as we expand into tourism and being that facility is so close to city amenities, that could be something to look at as well. The cost of installing, just from what we've done in terms of work at Nitehawk, installing our RV park is I don't think it'd be any cheaper than this. Yes, potential to make more revenue, but if you look at the numbers in terms of currently with the RV park, we've pretty well hit a stagnant number right now, just in terms of number of tournaments that we're hosting per year. The other thing too is the infrastructure down there is only 30 amp power as well as 20 amp power in Nine Diamonds. So in terms of the people that we can welcome down there, that's limited right now. But that could be certainly another opportunity. When this first came about, I thought, well, okay, do we have wiffle balls and things like that, right? I mean, but I think the point of a driving range, when people think of that, it's distance, and we already use limited flight range balls to avoid the neighbors' yards behind us. But I think that's a big part of that, and it complements the facility so well. I mean, obviously having the bike park and things down in the other volleyball and the ball diamonds, that's certainly complemented what we do and brings more visitors through the facility. We've talked about food service down there as well. Ice cream and things like that are popular. So there are ideas floating through our heads. Haven't put a lot of thought into what the business plan could look like. But again, this facility, just in terms of what the driving range sees in terms of usership, I think is worth the conversation to consider it, and as Aaron mentioned, it is accessible, and it's something where children are coming, and you don't have the pressures of, and I don't want to. Our competition is they all operate great facilities, but the thing about Bear Paw is that it's accessible, and both financially as well as you don't have to come with the dress code. You come as you are, and you utilize the facility. I think that's the biggest thing for me. So.
Okay, thank you.
To add to that too, like one of the private facilities does use our facility to free up more space at their facility for their members too. Yeah.
I have a question for you and administration, if both. This is brought up about a year ago. I'm just curious, did the city reach out as you are running this facility and have discussions about shutting down this piece of it? Or have you had discussions in this past year about what administration's plans are to do with this property?
So where these conversations originally started was with the netting. The netting was replaced, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago, and it's been deteriorating ever since. Also with the neighbors to to the, I guess, east of us, wanting to protect their yards and their homes, was looking at putting an increased height of pole on the end. So that's where the conversation started. And then again, we received a letter on September 25th this year, just to advise us that the driving range was going to be essentially decommissioned, and that. So yeah.
Okay, because this feels 11th hour to me.
Oh no.
And that's where I was curious about the date you received information. Mayor Clayton?
Thanks. Question for the CAO. If committee wants to direct administration to go away and work with the organization to see what's possible, knowing that budget starts tomorrow, what's your preference? Committee could defer a certain amount to budget for consideration, and then administration goes away and works with the group based on a certain amount, or it could come later. And yeah, what's your preference?
CEO Burke?
I think an option to go forward is that if and I'm not sure we're able, but if we're able to put costing around what would be the minimum requirement to maintain operations for next year, we'll strive to have that number for budget deliberations this week. Would encourage then the council consider both a decommission and a maintain for 1 year. I think that's probably the scale of funding that we're considering here. And for us to go away and work with Nitehawk, like I said earlier, the decommissioning wouldn't occur until after the winter, is my understanding, and so that would give us some time and for us to report back to council on what that path is. But I would recommend putting money aside for both those scenarios, with the commitment from administration that we wouldn't proceed with decommissioning or improving until we'd had a check-in back with council after discussions with Nitehawk.
Thank you, CEO Burke.
Sorry,
Do you need a motion?
No, just to be clear, so administration can bring back a number to keep it operational for next year for budget consideration this week?
We would endeavor to bring a number.
Okay.
That's the best I have.
Yep.
Thank you.
So I don't think there's any business required. It's already on budget, and yeah.
No further comments? Okay, thank you for coming, both Aaron and Jonathan, and we slipped it under the wire.
No, and thank you all for your time, and again, I do realize this is a very different situation because we are a third party operating a city facility. It's just, again, what it means to the community and to us is the reason why we're here. So
collaboration is everything, and whether it's with you or any other party, that's our role. So thank you for coming.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we'll go into reports, and I don't see Chief Lemieux. So, Ms. Cagelet, are you in for Chief Lemieux today?
I am, thank you, Chair Bosch.
Perfect.
So for enforcement services conducted fall inspections for vehicle for hire services from October 21st to 25th, resulting in 100 vehicles inspected and approximately 73 passing those inspections. On Halloween, peace officers were actively engaged in both Safety City and Downtown Association events, later transitioning to street patrols to maintain safety and distribute candy to kids. Mobile outreach team members, in collaboration with the Grande Prairie Police Services and Enforcement Services, participated in a Kairos exercise hosted by Northwestern Polytechnic. The exercise is an experiential teaching tool that explores the historic and contemporary relations between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in Canada. Mobile outreach also conducted patrols during the Downtown Association's Trick or Treat event on October 26th. On October 25th, the RCMP Crime Reduction Unit seized 250 grams of methamphetamines, 50 grams of cocaine, and other drug paraphernalia during a traffic stop, leading to the arrest of 2 suspects. During the past few weeks, the RCMP's Community Engagement and Diversity Unit has been busy with safety presentations at numerous schools. This unit also did a Canadian policing presentation at DesignWorks, and we're actively engaged in events and proactive visits with groups within the city. From October 7th to November 8th, the aquatics team at Eastlink Centre successfully delivered 9 advanced courses, including the National Safe Swim Recovery Program, and as well as public offerings. As a result, 15 candidates are working towards their lifeguard certification. The ASAA football provincials are coming to Hanson Lincoln Field on November 22nd to 23rd. The Peace Wapiti Speed Skating Club also welcomes speed skaters from Western Canada to compete at Design Works Centre November 23rd to 24th. On November 6th, the Grande Prairie Museum hosted a Remembrance Day lecture on the 100th anniversary of the Royal Canadian Air Force, which was a joint presentation with the Genealogy and Historical Societies. Bonnett's Energy Centre, in partnership with the Grande Prairie Legion, hosted the annual Remembrance Day ceremony on November 11th. Grande Prairie Look Up celebration with Will Graham was hosted at the Bonnett's Energy Centre November 8th and 9th with over 7,000 guests in attendance over the 2 days. There are a number of upcoming events happening at Bonnett's Energy Centre. So Storm versus Camrose, November 15th and 16th. Peace Region Girls Choir Concert, November 17th, taking place at Montrose Cultural Centre. Tennille Towns Tour, November 19th at Bonnett's. And Tinseltown Winter Market, November 22nd to 24th at the Bows. From Housing and Community Development, CSD is hosting a free family skate night with the Grande Prairie Storm in recognition of National Addictions Awareness Week. That will be taking place on November 27th from 7 to 8:15 p.m. At Design Works Arena. Special guests will be Grande Prairie Police Service and first responders. Admission is free for this event, and there will be a limited selection of rental equipment available. From the Grande Prairie Fire Department, the 2024 Fire Smart Vegetation Management Project has been completed, treating 8.92 hectares within the South Bear Creek corridor. Grant application has been made for additional funding in order to continue this work in 2025. And finally, the Regional Fire Training Center was officially unveiled last week in partnership with the City of Grande Prairie, County of Grande Prairie, and MD of Greenview. Grande Prairie Fire Department has already taken advantage of this facility to conduct live fire drills. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Ms. Cagelet. There's always lots to talk about with this department. Councillor Blackmore has a question.
Thank you. Ms. Cagelet, can you tell me the numbers again for the people who are in lifeguard training?
Thank you. 15 are currently have completed a portion of the program and are working towards their lifeguard certification.
And do we expect those 15 to be hired as lifeguards? Through the chair, it will depend on their successful completion of the remaining requirements of the lifeguard certification program, and there is certainly opportunity. I'm just curious. I think this question is probably for our CAO. We seem to have a problem retaining lifeguards at the Eastlink Centre, and I'm wondering if we've given any thought into how to correct that problem, or is it simply related to the age of lifeguards? I hear complaints that the pool cannot accept everyone in line because they don't have enough lifeguards on duty.
Thank you, Chair Bosch. Our previous challenges with recruiting lifeguards has improved with the training we've been offering, so it hasn't been as acute a problem as we've had previously. I will say, though, that also our numbers and our capacity at the pool, our numbers of usage have hit our capacity here, including this past weekend, which there were some substantial lines at the pool. More of a function of just capacity of the facility as opposed to lifeguards. Haven't had an acute lifeguard shortage in my understanding, but we are encouraging the training program so that we can keep this hiring. So something we're monitoring, but the facility is full.
And I don't have a problem with not letting people in when the facility is full, obviously. But what people are telling me is they're being told that they have to wait for someone to leave to go in because there's not enough staff on deck. And, you know, if it's because the facility's full, that the message needs to be the facility's full. I don't know if you want to respond to that, or we take it offline and discuss it later, or...
I'd just add that that's something I'll look into further with the operators of the facility, our staff there at the facility. But the comments taken.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Councillor Berg.
Yeah, not a question, just a quick comment. Again, Tennille Town's coming a week from today. She's done so much for the community, specifically around Sunrise House. So she's been a huge community supporter. Although she's living in Nashville, she still comes home. I just love to see the place sold out and the community support her back. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Berg. And I don't see any further questions. We'll move on to 5.2. And that is the mobile outreach. What do they have here? And is it Ms. Cagelet? Are you introducing that?
Thank you, Chair Bosch. Ms. Chelsea Frizzell, Mobile Outreach Manager, is here to present the annual statistics for Mobile Outreach Program.
Okay, Chelsea, welcome. Give you a minute. Can you introduce yourselves just for the video camera, and then we'll move on. I see Ms. Napier's here as well.
Thank you. Good morning. Chelsea Frizzell, Manager for Mobile Outreach.
Helen Napier, Managing Director of Mobile Outreach as well.
Okay. At the June 11, 2024 Public and Protective Services meeting, committee directed administration to bring back a report regarding mobile outreach, including statistics on the number of calls over the last 12 months compared to the same previous timeframe, as well as repeat residents that require supports, missed calls, and calls that require additional enforcement/services. To provide some background, mobile outreach was initiated as a pilot project in September of 2020 to mitigate street-level social disorder by addressing the needs of individuals struggling with addictions, mental health issues, and homelessness. Following successful operations, the program secured funding during the City of Grande Prairie's 2021 budget deliberations. In 2024, mobile outreach transitioned under the City of Grande Prairie's Police Service, GPPS, enhancing its service delivery model by providing a tiered response to social disorder and community outreach. I have also included budget and staffing information for your information. The chart below represents calls for service over the last 12 months compared to the same previous time frame. And in regards to, and that was calls for service from 2022 to 2023 and calls for service 2023 to 2024. In regard to repeat clients, out of the 974 unique individuals that were supported during June 2023 to May 2024, 453 were repeat clients and 521 were new clients to access outreach services. In regards to call statistics, the chart below shows the number of calls when mobile outreach was unavailable due to attending other calls or when calls require a higher level of intervention. When unavailable, mobile outreach referred to Public Security Unit, Enforcement Services, or RCMP to ensure a prompt response. I've also included outreach statistics, which represent warm transfers, which occur when an individual is directly connected to relevant services after a call for assistance. This process ensures people receive the help they need. In addition, I've included caseworker statistics, which represent services they have supported individuals in accessing in order to meet the requirements necessary to qualify for Housing First programs such as Cedar Point, Fletcher House, and Centre Point. Outreach services aim to support all residents by supporting unhoused individuals and mitigating social disorder, thereby enhancing the overall well-being and security of our community. By offering targeted interventions such as referrals to housing, addiction services, and mental health support, outreach services contribute to a safer, more inclusive community, which is pivotal to the city's vision. Without mobile outreach services in our community, there is risk of increased social disorder. The presence and visibility of homelessness and related issues can pose a risk to community safety and well-being. Without effective outreach and support services, these challenges may escalate, leading to higher incidences of public disturbances, substance use in public spaces, and other forms of social disorder. As well, we may see an increase in citizen and business concerns. Residents may feel less safe in the community, and businesses may experience negative impacts, such as decreased foot patrols, potential property damage. Addressing these concerns require a balanced approach that combines effective outreach services and community engagement and support. Since integration with the Grande Prairie Police Service, Mobile Outreach has adopted a more collaborative approach with Enforcement Services Community Engagement Team, resulting in more efficient responses to social disorder concerns. The team remains dedicated to working closely with individuals experiencing homelessness, connecting them to essential services and housing supports, and addressing basic needs. Thank you. And with that, I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate that. Councillor Blackmore was first on the queue.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. I'm sure that this is a question that we all have, but I note that you saw a couple hundred people calls for service drop off in 2024 as opposed to 2023. I'm wondering if if those are true numbers or if it's a reflection of not being available to take the call.
It is a true reflection of calls for service. Sorry, through the chair.
So that's, I think, good that we've seen a drop in calls for service. I think that means that we're doing something right somewhere in the city. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Just on that point, are they calling enforcement services or RCMP instead? Because I have been told that sometimes businesses don't feel that mobile outreach can do anything much other than, check on someone, the removing piece, or asking people to, I guess remove them. You can't do. So is there any relation to that the calls to service have been reduced in that capacity?
Thank you, through the chair. I think it's a combination. Mobile outreach does receive calls to remove folks from property. Of course, we don't have any enforcement or authorities to do so, but we definitely highly encourage. But we also share an integrated system with enforcement services. So if we're not able to meet the outcome of that call, we can then refer it internally to enforcement to handle that. And as well as if it's going to their dispatch, we can also attend, as it doesn't always necessarily require an enforcement approach.
Right. So some of those calls could be going directly, though, outside of mobile outreach, correct?
That's correct.
Councillor Berg.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. I'm just trying to put together the puzzle here of consistency, and at the end of the year they're fairly consistent, but month to month I'm seeing typically for about 10 months of the 12 we're seeing a 20 to 30% swing. I'm just kind of curious if we know why we see some of those swings from like 1,044 from one year to 738 in another, but also just kind of curious. So one of the issues that I was having was with an evacuee from the wildfires that never chose to go home. Are we seeing impacts from taking on, and not to say that we wouldn't, but taking on evacuees from different jurisdictions?
Ms. Frizzell?
Thank you, through the chair. We certainly do see, I would say, a small impact as we have worked with folks who have remained in our community past evacuations. But we do try and support them the best that we can to return them back to their home community and natural supports.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Clayton?
Chair Bosch, a couple questions, and if you have someone else in the queue, let me know. Would it be fair to say, based on Councillor Berg's question, that weather could be a component of these? It seems to be the winter months that have the biggest differential.
Through the chair, I would say that's accurate.
Okay. The number that I think is most intriguing is in regards to the caseworker statistics, where you see that the referrals for financial supports, housing supports, identification, and other. And so I don't know if that's a change of the capacity of our mobile outreach workers. They get more used to the individuals they're seeing. They, get more familiar with their needs, get more familiar with the community services. I don't know if it's, as they become more experienced, if that is the case, or is it just that the people that were visited by mobile outreach required different needs in this most recent year?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair, thank you. There is a drastic difference between the year 2022 and 2023 versus 2023 and 24. This is likely due to the caseworkers not starting with mobile outreach until April. So they did take some time to get familiar with their positions, get to know the community resources, and connect those clients with the services that they need.
So if I could, Chair Bosch, in my opinion, this is the win. Like, this is what the outcome should be for mobile outreach. Having recently visited the Navigation Center in Edmonton, and this is similar types of offerings that are happening at that Navigation Center in Edmonton. And so in the future, is this the goal for mobile outreach, to continue to expand on these types of services?
Through the chair. Thank you. Yes, that's absolutely correct. Anytime our outreach workers are engaging with folks in our community, we're making those direct referrals to our caseworkers to support with those housing support and other needs.
Perfect. I really appreciate the numbers. It's always good to see the numbers, albeit that social needs in our community continue to unfortunately climb. I think that we see some good successes here, and I appreciate the comments about the integration with enforcement services, and we know the future with the integration of Grande Prairie Police Service will continue to see some different results as well. So thank you for your report.
Thank you, Mayor Clayton. I have a question in regards to the addiction supports. Why has there been a reduction in this section from 464 to 261?
Through the chair, thank you. That is difficult to say. This is just due to those warm transfers, so those direct connections to addiction services. Of course, they are voluntary, so it is dependent on the client's needs and whether they're willing to access those services or not.
So addiction supports is just essentially trying to get them into the queue of support for assistance to get off their addiction.
That's
and
correct.
Whether they're not, if they say no, that is in this 261 column. Is that right?
Through the chair, no. If they say no, that is not included in this number. It's only those who have directly accessed the services that we're referring to is the 261.
Okay, so then that goes back to my question. Why are we only asking 261? Because most often, anybody who is in a vulnerable capacity has some sort of addiction support needed. So shouldn't that number be higher?
We wish it would be higher, absolutely. We are offering the services, but again, it's voluntary to the client, so it's whether they want to access those services or not.
Okay, so that's strictly accessing service.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Councillor Bosch. I have yet another question for our CAO. So our operating budget is basically $1.4 million. Is that entirely city funded, or are we accessing provincial dollars for that? And I'm asking that question because I know that the centers in Edmonton and Calgary both have significant provincial dollars landing there to help support those, the same supports that we're offering here. So I'm just curious because I cannot remember off the top of my head what the funding source is for the 1.4 million.
CO Berg?
Just going to ask our CFO to help me out on that.
Thank you, through the chair. It is a mix. They do receive funding from the province. And Ms. Frizzell probably would know better than me the actual names of those and what they're for, but it is a mix. There is some grant funding and tax funding.
Can you give me an idea of the percentage that is city funded?
I can look it up and get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you want to add to that? Do you know the numbers off the top of your head?
Thank you, through the chair. The number represented in this report here is our direct department budget through the city.
Okay.
Not the grant funded positions.
Okay.
So in fact, you operate with a higher budget than 1.4 million?
That's correct.
What is the total budget? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't have it at the top of my head, but I can certainly get back to you on that.
Okay, or Chief Whiteway can get back to us on that. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Burke.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Bosch. Just kind of curious, under relocations, can you define that term? Because the way I would understand it as it's written, would be is that somebody's in a business, they come and they remove them, or they're just in a place where they shouldn't be. But that number seems really low at only 20. So are we taking people back to their home community, or can you just elaborate on what relocations is?
Thank you. Through the chair, relocations does represent the number of folks that we've been able to support in getting back to their home communities or natural supports.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Mayor Clayton.
Just echoing some of Councillor Blackmore's comments, this obviously is a significant expense to the city. That is a provincial responsibility. I think the numbers coming back from the CFO would be valuable. And this is something that I think council should have continued conversation on in regards to advocacy priorities. This is something that we choose to do because we know it's valuable to our residents and to our business owners, but it comes with a cost. And I think that we need to have the continued conversations on this. Thanks.
Thank you. One question I have is on the crime mitigation grant. Now, to my understanding, when I was looking in the budget book, that is put into a different section. Is it put into enforcement services? Are you getting the funding for that crime for the needle mitigation?
Through the chair, the needle mitigation funding comes through Alberta Mental Health.
Right. Does it go directly to mobile outreach?
That's correct.
All of it?
I think you're speaking maybe of two different grants. Maybe Helen can speak more to that.
Through the chair, I'm not familiar with another part. What we get under mobile outreach is provincial funding for the needle mitigation position that we have. So that position is fully funded with grant money.
And running through mobile outreach?
Correct.
Thank you. I thought I read something different. I'll have to look back. I thought someone else had a question. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you. So I'm just trying to figure, sorry if I just missed in the presentation, but I'm trying to figure out, we've got 8,496 calls for service, also 8,496 referrals. So does that mean that there's never an interaction with somebody when you get called and you don't refer them somewhere?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair, there would be times when we do interact with folks that we're not referring to services. Usually that is because it requires a higher level of intervention, so it would just be a requirement to either enforcement or RCMP.
Right. So what I'm trying to figure out is this 8,496, would there be more touches with people than that in a year that's not captured in that number? Is that you actually had 8,496 touches with people over the course of the year?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair, thank you. That would be interactions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Palat, you had a question.
Thanks, Chair Bosch. Just curious, thanks for the reports. A lot of good information in here. I'm just curious on the repeat clients. And I like how you broke it out so we kind of could see that. Do we have a sense of how many repeat clients would be more than 10 times a year, more than 20 times a year, more than maybe 100 times a year? Like, would we have a sense of that as well?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we definitely do see an incline from year to year.
And I guess the reason I'm asking is it's about $165 a ride is about what it works out to for math. And so I guess for me, I just like to know if we've got somebody that's been a 50-time repeat person that's through this, is it a different process for them than the first time they were picked up? If they've had a history of being picked up 50 times over the course of a year, is it the exact same process as if they were picked up for the first time?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair, it would be the same process. Again, just offering and encouraging the services that we have available to them in our community.
Okay, and is it something, I mean, I'm not on this committee, but I'd like to see further information on this at some point, but is it something we could get a higher level of how many of the repeat offenders are more than 50 or 100 times a year? And I guess the reason it's important to me is my gut would say that we're spending more on some of these folks than what it would cost to physically house them. Like, I would be surprised if we're not moving some of these folks 10 times a month, which would cost us more than what it's putting them in Cedar Point would cost. I'm just wondering about seeing that model, and maybe that's another way we can get a little bit more involved or effective use of that money than just moving some folks around. But is that information that we could receive if we were asking for it in another report, or?
Yes, we could get that to you.
Okay, thank you.
To my understanding, enforcement services, RCMP, GPPS in the future all have that same concern in regards to calls to service. Some people are 200 times a year, and it's not just mobile outreach that has to deal with that. I think all levels of enforcement have to deal with that, and housing is the key, and that's what we're trying to look at, getting more housing in our city. Councillor Thiessen.
Thank you very much, Chair Boss. Thank you for the report, ladies. I appreciate all the data and all the stats. I'm just trying to wrap my head around a table. I think the mayor referenced it earlier, the caseworker statistics. And in there, I'm trying to figure out the math because the totals seem really off. For the total, it says 492 in 22-23, and for 23-24 referrals made to caseworkers, the total is 916. But in other, there's 1,053 referrals to caseworkers. So is that the anomaly, or are the totals, do they just need to be re-added?
Ms. Frizzell?
Through the chair. The totals in this chart represent the direct services that were provided to clients. So one client may have received detox or treatment, been supported with ID and housing supports. So typically with the rise in number here, I think one, it's due to a full year of service for our caseworkers being able to provide those services. In addition to that, a lot of it is advocacy and connecting them to additional supports until they can be housing ready and supported.
Okay, so some of these are multiple. So when it's ID, food security, financial, housing, is there a way that we could better illustrate that in the table? I mean, I was confused on the weekend when I was reading it. I was like, wait a minute. And so I highlighted it. But is there a way that we can illustrate that better, that if there's multiple service touch points on one client, that can be sort of filtered out so our numbers don't look so weird?
Through the chair, we can certainly look at revamping the charts.
Awesome, thank you.
Data.
My guess to that is if you're having an interaction with someone, you're offering more than one opportunity. I'm not sure that's a separate touch point, though. Okay, so we will look for a motion to receive this for information. Councillor Burke?
Yeah, I'd just like to recommend committee receive this report for information.
Thank you, Ms. Frizzell and Ms. Napier, for coming in. It was a good report.
Thank you.
And we'll call the question.
Councillor Berg in favor.
Thank you, and that is carried. Thank you both. All right, now we're going to go into 5.3, the security backbone conversation that food security backbone that we had earlier this morning through our delegations. So welcome, Tammy and Melissa, thank you. When you're ready, you can let us know the intention of your visit.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to present today on the concept and establishment of the backbone organization for food security in our community. This report reflects ongoing efforts to address the escalating issue of food insecurity in Grande Prairie, affecting nearly 19.13% of residents, as highlighted in the 2023 Food Access and Affordability Survey. It is evident that our current approach, relying on short-term relief and fragmented services, cannot meet the growing demand or provide sustainable long-term solutions. In August 2024, Council passed two key motions. On August 20th, the Public and Protective Services Committee directed administration to explore the concept of a community-based backbone organization to coordinate food security efforts and report back with options. On August 26, Council requested additional information on whether the Salvation Army could assume this role. Following these motions, administration initiated discussions with key partners. On September 4th, a meeting was held with the Salvation Army, who confirmed at that time they could not fulfill the role of backbone organization. On September 5th, 2024, administration hosted an engagement session with representatives from 10 organizations, including food banks, shelters, schools, and support services. The feedback was clear. There is an urgent need for a dedicated, focused approach through a backbone organization. At that time, three major themes emerged from that session. The one was a need for a dedicated position, a coordinator, organizations emphasize that having a full-time coordinator is essential to oversee initiatives, facilitate data sharing, and manage resources effectively. This role cannot be handled as an additional task. It requires dedicated leadership. The second theme, a lack of coordination and communication. Many organizations currently operate in silos, leading to duplication of services and gaps in support. A backbone organization would centralize coordination, align efforts, and foster meaningful collaboration. The third theme, desire for innovation and a holistic approach. Participants expressed the need to move beyond emergency food relief, focusing instead on quality food, adaptable programs, and comprehensive support that empower residents. During the engagement session, each organization outlined their strengths and potential contributions to support a backbone organization. At the time, Helping Hands, and at that meeting, Helping Hands was the only organization to express interest and demonstrate both the capacity and commitment to take on the vital role. As Helping Hands said earlier in their delegation today, they are prepared to lead in the following areas: to develop a unified food security strategy, bring food serving organizations together, track progress and analyze data, leverage community assets and help secure funding, lead advocacy, and prioritize residents' input by continuously doing community engagement. To advance this initiative and build community capacity, administration has been collaborating with Helping Hands to understand the support needed to have dedicated positions focused solely on food security to ensure that resources are directed towards strategic core roles, elevating food security from an ad hoc effort to a primary focus. As we've seen and we've heard, and the research has shown us, without having dedicated positions, the response to food insecurity will remain reactive and fragmented. By investing in Helping Hands, we have a chance to establish a proactive, sustainable system that effectively meets residents' needs and reduces dependencies on emergency food services over time. In conclusion, the message from our community-based organizations has been clear. As we've seen this morning, we had many of them show up here in support of Helping Hands. The current approach is not sufficient, and a dedicated backbone organization is essential for a unified strategic response to food insecurity. Helping Hands is the only organization ready and willing to take on the role, providing the leadership needed to transform our food security system. By approving this funding, Council can empower Helping Hands to lead an innovative, collaborative effort that brings sustainable solutions in our community. In relation to the motion that was already made today during the delegations for Helping Hands, administration respectfully recommends that committee recommend Council fund $80,000 per year over 2 years, a total of the $160,000 to Helping Hands, a division of Northreach, from Council Strategic Initiative Fund. This investment lays the foundation for long-term change, improving residents' quality of life, and building strong, more resilient community. Thank you for your time and consideration, and we're happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you for the report, Tammy. I just want to ask a question for clarity. This morning, Helping Hands asked for 2 staff members to be covered. Are you asking for one of those staff members that they asked for this morning, or is this a third person that you're asking funds for?
Thank you, Chair Bosch. The $160,000 based on the budget that I work with Helping Hands on was for the 2 positions, so there is no additional ask. This is the ask. I'm asking for the $80,000 per year over 2 years instead of the full $160,000 in 1 year.
Okay, so they're asking for $160,000 for 2 years each year. $160,000.
$80,000 per year.
They're asking for $80,000 per year.
They asked for $160,000 overall,
yes.
And my recommendation is that we do the $80,000 per year over 2 years.
Okay, that's the clarity I was looking for. Thank you. Councillor Blackmore. Okay, same question. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, I'm comfortable still with Mayor Clayton's motion to bring it up later this week in budgets. So Ms. Wenzel, you've obviously sat through many hours of meetings with all of the groups. We're just hearing a lot of this information for the first time today. So I just want to be reassured that you're comfortable through all of those meetings that this is the right direction and the right people to go with.
Thank you for the question through the chair. It is true. We've spent many, many hours and many, many years in meetings talking about food security. I do believe that this is the approach that we need to take to be innovative, to look at what's happening across other municipalities. We are seeing success by looking at a different model. So we need to look at that different model, and I think Helping Hands is the organization right now that has the capacity to do so.
Okay, thanks.
Tam, if you can answer this, because I'm going to go back to my first question to some degree. This is $80,000 per year for one staff member or for two? Because they were asking for two this morning for 2 years.
Thank you for the question. And yes, the $80,000 per year would be for the two staff. So the second staff that Dallas had talked about was only a 0.5 position. It's not a full-time position. And it's really about the logistics worker and really looking at how they need to look at the inventory management or the receiving and processing of the donations that could come when this is kind of live streamed, to say, hey, we're doing this as a community, as an organization. They want to be prepared for what the community could bring forward.
So in your opinion, the preparing for this and the actual doing, is it necessary to have two people in the preparing portion of it versus the practical application of doing it?
Thank you. Good question. I would say Helping Hands is already in the preparation stage. They are already looking at innovation. The work that I've seen currently, or even over the past couple months, they already have a small storefront operation. They just couldn't take it beyond where it is at this point. So right now, I would say yes to your question, that I would agree that they do need the two positions, one for the preparation and one to coordinate and bring all of the other organizations together and develop that strategy and business plan.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question? Or Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair Bosch. Have you had conversations with Helping Hands? Can they do it with 80,000?
Thank you for the question through the chair. Yes. At this time, they could do it for $80,000 per year over 2 years.
So they agreed that it was a phased-in approach, that it was going to cost $160,000, but to Councillor Bosch's comments, that $160,000 appeared to be two full-time people in perpetuity. You're telling me now that they can do it for 80, so I'm confused.
Sorry, no, they can do it. So over the 2 years, they're looking at, so the preparation, and I think to your question, to the preparation is they're already preparing, but they don't need the full-time logistics worker. It's not a full-time logistics worker that they're preparing for. The full-time position is the coordinator. The logistics worker is kind of the 0.3, 0.5 position.
So you're asking for the same amount?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, that was the clarity. 160 in total for two people, or 80,000 a year for 2 years.
So,
go ahead.
So based on that, that was my confusion as well as obviously Councillor Bosch's. I'm happy to rescind my, make a motion to rescind my previous motion and work off the motion in the package. So Council will support the rescinding of the previous motion. We can deal with the business that is in the staff report.
Okay, so we'll call the question to rescind Mayor Clayton's previous motion. Call the question. Okay, that carries. Mayor Clayton, would you like to?
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion. The committee recommend council fund 80,000 per year over 2 years to a total of 160,000 to Helping Hands, a division of North Reach Society, funded from Council Strategic Initiatives Fund, but I'm deferring this to the budget deliberations. So the motion doesn't say that. I would like to defer it to budget deliberations as funded in the report.
Thank you. And we'll wait till it says.
And speaking to that, I think it's a great initiative. It's something council's been looking for. I think it's a reasonable price tag to know that we can have an integrated, efficient approach to food security. I just think that it's when we're spending council's strategic initiative fund, all of council should have an opportunity to have that discussion.
Agreed. Any other comments to the motion? No? And is it in there already? To budget deliberations. I'll call the question. That is passed, and Councillor Blackmore just has a question. Hang on tight. I don't know if it's for you or for
This
you.
is a little bit off topic, but not really. The Tamarack Institute has been really the developer of the whole process of a backbone organization and community asset development. There is a community development course that they're offering for next Thursday, the 21st. I'm wondering if you have staff that have registered for that.
Tammy or Melissa?
Thank you, through the chair. So we do work very closely, as you mentioned, with the Tamarack Institute, and there are many of us that have been taking regular training over time and have training in that course, like the asset community development and collective impact and all of that. But I will certainly have a look and look for whether there's any staff within our department that haven't taken that training. Thank you.
I'm registered for that myself, so I haven't taken any of those courses for several years, so I'm curious about it. But yeah, thanks.
And to follow up through the chair, we are a member of the Tamarack Institute, so we hold a membership with the Tamarack. So we work very closely with them on many of our initiatives, from our youth to our food security. So yes, thank you.
Okay. Mayor Clayton.
Thanks. I had a question in a similar vein. Initially, when reports came to council in regards to opportunities in food security, there was a conversation around whether or not the Salvation Army was a member of the Alberta or Canadian Food Banks Association. Can you clarify that for me? Because I feel like when council had a presentation from the Salvation Army, they said they were, but I think that we talked about potential grants that they weren't applying for because they weren't. Do you have any additional context to that?
Tammy? Melissa?
Thank you for the question, through the chair. So our understanding still is that our local Salvation Army is not a member of the Food Banks of Alberta. Food Banks of Canada, locally, I also do not believe that they are, but it's a little bit trickier because they are a larger institution, so they may have membership at a higher level with Food Banks Canada that just kind of isn't reflected then always locally. We do know that Helping Hands has already been in conversations with Food Banks of Alberta and is working towards membership, and is very excited about the opportunities and the collaboration and the networking that happens as being a part of Food Banks of Alberta.
Perfect, thank you.
And to that point, through the chair, Food Banks of Alberta was in our community 2 weeks ago to work directly with Helping Hands to look at what that would look like for accreditation in our community.
Perfect. Yes, I have the understanding that the Salvation Army was not registered through them, and that was one of the things they had looked at doing in the future, but it's not tied to the main food bank of our community, is it? Necessarily.
The membership, sorry? Yeah. No, at this point, the Salvation Army does not hold a membership with the Food Banks of Alberta.
But anybody else can, let's say any other organization through this backbone, has the opportunity to hold a membership, correct?
It's just one person.
My understanding is that typically Food Banks of Alberta prefers to work with one organization. I think there's probably that belief like the collaboration can happen within the community, but in terms of for them with what they do and how they'll send food to a community and everything, it is easier for them to work with one local food bank is typically how that membership works. And there's like an accreditation process that you have to go through in terms of, they have a certain set of standards and that. So I would have to find out further as to whether it's impossible. I don't think it's necessarily impossible for more than one food bank to have membership. But when I did have that conversation, it just works easier for them. If
Yes,
there's
I wasn't clear. If the Salvation Army is our main resource for food security, and Helping Hands takes that over in regards to the Alberta side, is there issues with that? That's the clarity that I'm curious, because Salvation Army holds the majority of food focus for people who need it. Helping Hands can still take over that Alberta Food Bank registration on their own and still work with Salvation Army? Yes?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So with Helping Hands being the backbone organization, it would never be about kind of eliminating any of the other organizations or what they do in the community. It's really about breaking down the silos and working more directly together. So during our engagement session, the Salvation Army talked about their role in distributing food and maybe even looking at storage of food. So it's really then bringing those partners to the table to say, what asset do you hold and how do we all work together differently?
Of course, because storing of food, if they can get 50 pallets of potatoes through the Alberta food banks, you need a place to store that, hence Salvation Army. Mayor Clayton, you had a question, and then Councillor Blackmore.
Just following up on Helping Hands, Northreach, when they were here, they talked about a store and a location, which appears to be concepts of many people. Will administration be making sure that the efficiencies are found? It's, in my personal opinion, there's not a goal for everybody to have a store and everybody to have a food bank and everybody to have storage of food. The backbone organization, I would hope, is removing some of those duplication of services, et cetera. So I'm assuming if passed at budget, this won't come back to council. Maybe it would come back for a check-in. But what's administration's role and for oversight in regards to what this would look like going forward?
Tammy?
Thank you for the question through the chair. That is exactly correct. One of the comments that was made during our engagement session around what role should the city play, and the community really sees our role as a support role and ensuring that efficiencies are found and ensuring that if this happens, that we develop that scope of work to say, how do we all work differently together? So, and having a place at the leadership table that they would bring together with all the organizations. So that definitely would be our role, is having that oversight and helping our community be more accountable and finding the solutions with a strategy. So it wouldn't be a city strategy, but it can be a community-based food security strategy where the organizations are saying, this is the assets I hold and this is what I'm willing and can do.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
I know that there are at least one organization in town that does have a member in Alberta Food Banks, and that's the Veterans Food Bank. Their membership's probably held through Veterans of Alberta Food Bank, but they do have a membership because they are getting food from there. I don't know if they've ever shared that with you.
Thank you, through the chair. No, to my knowledge, I did not know. They had not shared that with us, but as kind of mentioned, sometimes, a different level, with a larger network and institution, someone within that may have membership, and but yes, we look forward to connecting more with them as well.
I think overall this is a new path for all of the community and the city included. So I think some of these details will get ironed out and you'll help us understand who gets to do what and in what capacity, just for our clarity as well. And the citizens, right? They need to know, essentially who to go for what.
Thank you. That's a good point through the chair. During our engagement session, that was one of the comments from the community-based organizations was, if we're doing this, the residents in our community the messaging needs to be clear of what we're doing and why we're doing this. So that did come up in the engagement sessions as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. I think we've answered all those questions and we're going to move on. Thanks for all that. I look forward to hearing more in the future. Correspondence, we don't have any, or other business. We'll go straight to outstanding items list, please.
Thank you through the chair. There are no amendments to the outstanding items list.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion. Councillor Berg.
Yeah, I'd like to move committee receive the November 12th outstanding items list as amended for information.
Hang on here. Let's take a look at this. You think there is?
Would we not be taking food security backbone organization and food security off the oil list?
Thank you through the chair. Yes, that is correct. If we could do that and amend it, that would be.
CEO Burke.
Our practice has been to wait until the following council meeting has looked at any motions. So we bring it back at the next one. Has been our practice to date. So at the next meeting, we'll remove it once there's been approval of council of these minutes.
Thank you, CEO Burke. Okay, we'll call the question for no amendments.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Now we will go into an in-camera. So I'm looking for...
I move we go in camera.
Thank you, Councillor Blackmore. And we won't be coming out in regards to this meeting, I don't believe, right? That's correct. Okay, and so this is our